For years, Haley had been trapped in a web of lies and manipulation, her every decision controlled by the very people who should have supported her. But when the truth about her parents' dark game comes to light, she must decide. Will she continue to be their pawn, or will she finally break free and reclaim her own life? The stakes are higher than ever, and the battle for her future is only just beginning. My mother-in-law, Diane, had always been a bit of a puzzle. On the surface, she was warm, gracious, the type of woman who would invite you over for dinner, with a smile that made you feel welcome. But I had learned over the years that her smile concealed a sharp edge, especially when it came to me. I knew she never truly approved of me, and perhaps that's what made her actions at dinner that evening so chilling. I was Julian Mercer, 32 years old, an independent photographer based in Asheville, North Carolina. I'd worked my entire career from the ground up, shooting weddings, wildlife, magazine spreads, anything that would pay the bills. It wasn't glamorous work, but it kept me going. I was proud of it. Unfortunately, Diane was not. She had never understood what I did, often referring to my career as a hobby at family dinners. Her husband, Gerald, was no better. He was an investment banker, the kind of man who measured success by stock options and the square footage of his house. Over the years, I'd tried to show them that my career was more than a phase, but it was never enough. Every Sunday dinner, Gerald would ask, "How's the little photography hobby, Julian?" He never tried. To hide his disdain, and Diane, she'd always praise my work, but subtly suggest that it wasn't quite good enough for her daughter. My wife, Haley, and I met 6 years ago at an art exhibition. I was just starting to make a name for myself, and Haley was finishing her master's in environmental science. We hit it off instantly. She understood my need to capture the world through my lens, and I admired her dedication to protecting it. But her parents, they were a different story. From the very first time I met them, I knew they didn't think I was good enough. Gerald had expected someone more traditional, someone with a desk job, a retirement plan, someone exactly like him. Diane was subtler. She'd praise my work while asking when I was going to settle into something stable. She'd invite me to family functions, but introduce me as the photographer, not her son-in-law. As the years passed, their disdain grew more apparent. Last Christmas, I overheard Diane on the phone complaining about me to a friend. Haley could have married Thomas, you know, she said, an orthopedic surgeon, family money, but she chose the creative one. The way she said creative made it sound like a disease. Gerald wasn't any better. When Haley and I announced we were trying for a baby, he pulled me aside. "Children are expensive, son," he said. "Maybe think about real employment before bringing one into the world." I never told Haley these things. She loved her parents despite their flaws, and I didn't want to force her to choose sides. So I smiled, shook Gerald's hand firmly at every visit, complimented Diane's cooking, and kept my thoughts to myself. But there were signs. I should have taken them more seriously. The Friday of Diane's birthday dinner, I returned from a week-long wildlife assignment in Montana. The wind had cut through me like a knife, and my bones ached from trudging through knee-deep snow to photograph bison for National Geographic. I was bone-tired, but Haley insisted we couldn't miss her mother's birthday dinner. "Just a couple of hours," she promised. I should have listened to the knot in my stomach when Diane cornered me in the kitchen. Her eyes darted around, nervously, before she handed me a drink. "I made it special just for you," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. There was something off about her, something I couldn't put my finger on. I took the glass from her, but something wasn't right. I discreetly switched glasses with Gerald, who had always been critical of my career. He was the type to measure success by how much money you made and where you lived. The moment I placed the tampered glass in front of him, I felt a cold chill in my chest. It wasn't just paranoia. It was something instinctual, like a warning signal going off in my head. I didn't drink the glass Diane had prepared for me. I didn't trust her. For the next 45 minutes, I kept my eyes on Gerald, who was busy checking, his phone barely looking up as he took a sip from the glass. I made an excuse about preferring water with my dessert. The tension in the room grew thicker by the minute. My mother-in-law's strained smile never wavered as the minutes ticked. It didn't take long for the effects to become apparent. Gerald's face turned pale, his forehead beaded with sweat. He excused himself, rushing to the bathroom, the violent sounds of his illness echoing through the house. Diane's face drained of color as she realized what had happened. She looked at me across the table, and in that moment I knew two things with absolute certainty. My mother-in-law had tried to poison me, and she knew that I knew. I didn't react. I didn't confront her. Instead, I calmly finished my chocolate cake while Haley rushed to check on her father. In the chaos that followed, Gerald insisting it must have been food poisoning, Diane stammering about bad shellfish, I quietly pocketed the untouched glass meant for me. Something had shifted inside me. The anger I felt wasn't hot or explosive. It was cold, deliberate. I wasn't going to let this go, but I wasn't going to fight their way either. I was going to make them face exactly who they were. The Monday after the dinner, I took the glass to Jason, a former client who ran a toxicology lab. I didn't explain much, just that it was a family matter. 3 days later, he called me. "Julian, there were benzodiazepines in that drink," he said. "Nothing lethal, but enough to knock someone out for hours, maybe cause some memory loss. Where did you get this?" I thanked him and asked for a written report. I didn't answer his question. Not yet. I had a plan, but I needed more information. First, I didn't tell Haley about the test results, not yet. Instead, I started doing some digging into Diane's background. It didn't take long to find out that she had a prescription for Xanax from 3 different doctors. She'd been doubling and tripling her doses for years. There were also rumors about her. Strange behavior at a neighbor's party. Accusations. of stealing jewelry at her country club. Stories her family had worked hard to bury. I compiled everything and waited for my moment. That moment came when Haley mentioned her mother needed new photos for her social media profile. She specifically asked if you would take them, Haley said, surprised by the request. "I'll do it," I said. I knew this would be my chance to confront Diane. The following Saturday, I arrived at their house alone, camera bag in one hand, a sealed envelope in the other. Diane was waiting for me, dressed expensively, her makeup perfect. Gerald was at the office. "Before we start," I said quietly, "I thought you might want to see this." I handed her the envelope containing the toxicology report, along with printouts of her multiple prescriptions. Her hands trembled as she read. "This is absurd," she whispered. "I would never—" "We both know what happened," I cut her off. "What I don't know is why." Her face hardened. "You're not good enough for my daughter," she snapped. "You never will be. A man should provide security, not pictures. And drugging your daughter's husband provides security." I kept my voice level. "It wasn't going to hurt you. It was just going to make you sick. Make you miss that ridiculous gallery opening you've been talking about for months. Show Haley that you're unreliable." I let that sink in. "Here's what happens next," I said finally. "You're going to tell Gerald what you did. Then you're both going to start treating me with respect. Not because you suddenly changed your minds about me, but because the alternative is Haley finding out exactly who her parents are." Diane laughed, but it sounded hollow. "She'll never believe you over us." I picked up my camera bag. "Maybe not, but she'll believe the lab report and the prescription records, and the neighbors you've alienated. Are you willing to bet your relationship with your daughter on that?" Diane tried to spin the situation. When she called Haley in tears, claiming that I'd been hostile and threatening during our session, Haley confronted me and I couldn't hide the truth anymore. I showed her everything. The lab report, the prescriptions, even text messages from her mother that had grown increasingly hostile over the years. "My mother wouldn't do this," Haley kept saying, but her voice lacked conviction. The doubt had already been planted. It wasn't long before Haley confronted her parents. When she came back home, her eyes were red from crying. "My father says it's all a misunderstanding," she said quietly, "that they're trying to drive a wedge between us because you're insecure about your career." I nodded. I'd expected this. "What do you think?" I asked. She didn't answer, just crawled into bed, and as we prepared to leave, I handed Gerald a USB drive. "This contains everything," I said, my voice calm and steady. "The footage, the emails, the records, everything you've done to manipulate Haley and Owen's lives, everything you've done to tear us apart." Gerald's face flushed crimson as he stared at the drive in my hand. The weight of his ignorance seemed to be bearing down on him. the realization of his own powerlessness evident in his expression. For the first time, I saw him as a man who no longer controlled the room, no longer had the upper hand. The once confident investment banker, who had measured life in terms of wealth and influence, was now nothing more than a helpless shell of his former self. Diane, on the other hand, was seething. She stood up abruptly, her voice trembling as she spoke, but not with remorse. "You think this will change anything?" she spat. "You think Haley will believe any of this? You don't know her. We raised her. She will never choose you over her family." Her words hit like a slap in the face, but I didn't flinch. "No, Diane," I said quietly. "She has chosen. She's chosen to stop being controlled, to stop being manipulated by people who should have been her support, not her jailers. I've shown her the truth. I've given her the tools to see who you are." For a moment, the room was silent. Even Owen, who had been hesitant to get involved, looked at his parents as if he were seeing them for the first time. His expression was no longer that of a devoted son, but that of someone who had begun to understand the dark forces that had been at work in his life all along. "We don't have to live like this anymore." Haley's voice broke the silence. She stood beside me, her hand gently gripping mine, a symbol of our partnership. "I've spent years in the shadow of your manipulation, thinking I was just making bad choices. But the truth is, you were behind it all. You made me doubt my worth, doubt my judgment, and even doubt my marriage." She turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and regret, but also something stronger: determination. "I'm sorry, Julian. I should have seen it sooner." I squeezed her hand, holding her close. "It's not your fault, Haley. You were just trying to make everyone happy. You were trying to make a family out of people who were only interested in controlling you. It's time to put an end to that." Gerald opened his mouth, but no words came out. Diane was shaking with fury, her attempts to maintain her composure crumbling in the face of the undeniable evidence. "You think this is over?" Diane snarled, her voice laced with venom. "You think you've won? You haven't. I will never accept this." "I know," I replied, my voice unwavering, "but you'll have to accept one thing. Haley's not your puppet anymore. She's not your project. She's her person, and she's making her own decisions, starting now." As we walked out of the room, the door to their life closed behind us. The weight of what had just transpired settled in the pit of my stomach. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It wasn't just about me. It was about the whole family, the years of toxic control, the manipulation that had been allowed to fester in the shadows. But now, finally, the truth had come to light. Haley didn't say much as we left their house that evening. She sat beside me in the car, her face a reflection of all the emotions she had been holding back for years. I didn't push her to speak. I let her process it in her own time. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There were wounds to heal, relationships to rebuild, and battles to fight. But for the first time in a long time, we had a clear path forward. As we pulled into our driveway, Haley finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "I'm going to tell them everything. What they did, what they tried to do to us. I'll tell Owen too. He needs to know. I can't let them manipulate him the way they've manipulated me." "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice gentle. "This won't be easy for you. They're going to fight you. They'll try to turn it all on me, on us." "I'm sure," she said, her gaze steady as she looked at me. "I've spent my life trying to please them, trying to live up to their expectations. But I've come to realize that I can't keep doing that. I can't let them dictate my life anymore, and I can't let them destroy the one thing that matters to me. Us." I nodded, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. She was stronger than I'd ever given her credit for. She was ready to fight for the life she deserved, the life we had built together, the life that didn't revolve around her parents' toxic grip. That night, after everything had settled down, I sat with Haley in our living room, a quiet peace falling over us. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter, the weight of the past years of manipulation and deceit lifting just a little. The journey ahead would be long, but we were ready for it, and we had each other, no matter what. As I glanced at the USB drive still in my hand, I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't just the story of Diane and Gerald's betrayal that needed telling. It was the story of Haley reclaiming her life, of us reclaiming our future. And I would be there every step of the way, camera in hand, ready to document it all. This time the story wouldn't be just about what they tried to do to us, it would be about our victory.